One thing we're learning in this church planning process is that church planning takes a long time. I suppose we could have started a church and gone down the street, made some flyers, put some ads out there, hired a band and said, come to church. But that's what is called church starting. Church planning is building teams from the ground up, building disciples who build other disciples, empowering men and women and the gifts that God has given them. And that's what we want to do. And also Kaz and I, our heart is that we wanted confirmation that God was calling us to plant a church. So what we did when we were still in Hawaii was we got a small group of our close friends and said, would you pray and fast with us and ask God if this is what he has for us, if he wants us to plant a church? And the response from that group was yes. So we're like, okay, let's do it. And before we left, we got connected with Rise Church Planning organization, Rise Church Planning Network, and they were interested and they were positive, but nothing was for sure. So we took this huge leap of faith and we came to California. And the first week we were here, we were still living in hotels. We did the assessment. I talked about that in the first vlog. And at this assessment, you have 3 assessors and they have you do these different exercises and you have to do it on the spot. And then you get instant feedback about what you did, the pros, the cons, what you could tweak, what you could improve on, what they liked, and all of that. And then prior to that assessment, you had to fill out all these forms about theology, about church ministry, about your marriage, about your strengths, your weaknesses, your all sorts of things. And then what they do is they compile everything. So this past week, we got a call from Gateway Leadership Institute, GLI, and they gave us the results. And it was really freaky, to be honest with you, because at one point Kaz and I looked at each other and I looked at Rick, who was giving us the results. And by the way, on a side note, I found later on after we took the assessment that this GOI organization is one of the largest church planning assessment organizations in the United States. It's really influential from what I have heard. Anyways, at one point Kaz and I look at each other and then I look at Rick and I say, Rick, how does it feel that you're able to look into our souls? He was able to take all the assessments that we did prior to the assessment and then go through all the assessment material. And he just was able to really pinpoint our strengths, our weaknesses, and really stuff that never really came up, but he was able to draw that out through all these different avenues. And it was mind-blowing and it was kind of crazy, but a really cool experience. The long story short is that GOI, this church planning assessment organization, has given us their stamp of approval, which is massive, to plant a church. And they said that they recommended us to have a church planning coach, which Kaz and I are excited about, and that Rise Church Planning Network provides when they go with us. So here's how it works now. Sometime this coming week, maybe next week, we're going to find out what type of support Rise is going to give us. Now, the main support that Rise will give us, they're going to give us financial support, but how they do financial support now, the main way I should say, is they look at our financials, what we have raised as a church planners, as missionaries. They will look at what we brought in and they will match that. So there's other avenues I think that they look at in terms of funding and all of that. But I say all of that because if you haven't given yet, or you've been thinking about giving, ask God. Ask the Holy Spirit, say, Lord, are you calling me to give to restore church? And go ahead and give. But I feel we're at this point here, this point where the snowball is starting to to get momentum and starting to go down the hill. Now, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch yet, but Kaz and I are excited. We're going to find out more this coming week, and we're going to see what we have in store for us. Because here's the bottom line. When we got here, I probably applied for 30 jobs, I'm thinking. Chaplain jobs, jobs in warehouses, just to bring in money of any kind. Because, you know, we want to pay rent on our apartment here, and we couldn't get jobs anywhere. So Kaz got me hooked up with this job. So she's been doing graphic design, bringing money in, and she works with this one graphic design company. She's a graphic designer for this solar company, and I got connected with them, and I became what's called a setter, where my job is to connect people with this organization, and then if they go and they buy solar, then I get commission from that. So I'm thinking, okay, nobody's calling me back. I don't have any job prospects. I better do this. So I literally went to roughly 100 homes, and Lily Rose came with me as well. And I'd go home to home, door to door, knocking on doors, old school, and just asking people, you know, would you be interested in having a Zoom conversation about solar? And they could tell you about how many solar panels you would need and all that sort of stuff. And so anyways, that hasn't really panned out. But now what I've been doing is I've been substitute teaching, and not just substitute teaching, but substitute teaching one-on-one with a special needs kid. I did that for 6 days. And now, this coming week, I'm going to a different school, same thing, one-on-one special ed for a first grader this time. And it is rewarding, but it is exhausting. So I ask for your prayers as we have to do this. But as I start thinking about jobs, and working hard and asking for money, I feel like church planners and missionaries are always asking for money, right? I feel like I have to do that. I mean, well, we have to do that. And it's not because we're not hard workers. It's not because Kaz isn't working hard. Kaz is working really hard, doing homeschool with the girls, doing the backside of the stuff for the church, the business stuff, the brochures, the graphics, changing things when they need to be changed. She's also doing graphic jobs for these other companies, bringing income in. She's killing it. She's working so hard. And with me, I'm like, this past week, my commute was about an hour and 45, hour and 50 minutes round trip to go to a class, special ed class, one-on-one, and it's rough, and then go, you know, try to sell or introduce people to solar, and it's rough. So I started thinking more about this. The money is not about because we don't want to work. No, we want to work hard, but I realized something. And here's what I realized. It is draining doing stuff you don't love to do, that you're not called to do. Kaz and I are called to full-time ministry. We are called to plant a church. We are called to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth here and now. And it's not that people can't do that in their jobs, because they can, and you must. If you work in a non-religious job, a secular job, yes, it is your responsibility from the Lord to go and open up those conversations and have faith conversations. So in the meantime, what we've done here in our complex is on April 19th, the day before Easter, we had an Easter egg hunt just right behind me here. And we had 25 kids show up. It was awesome. And we had about 10 parents, and then we had different color eggs for different age groups. And then we passed out flyers saying, okay, if you're in this age group, this is your color. This age group, this is your color. And it was great. Had a great chance to talk to the parents. And then, you know, we said 1, 2, 3, go, and all the kids went. They got the eggs, and it was exciting. And because there was 25 kids, we weren't sure how many kids were going to come up. We thought maybe 50. So we had extra eggs, extra candy. So I think each kid probably had about 20 eggs each or something like that. But one of the families, when we were there, said, hey, we have a backdrop that we can hang up, and then the parents could take pictures of their kids. I said, that's great. I said, yeah, let's do it. So they brought a backdrop, and then the parents are able to take pictures of their kids. So we had a makeshift photo booth in a sense. And it was just a great way to connect. And then after the Easter egg hunt, it was really cool to see about 6, 7 kids, 4 of them were ours, all playing together and hanging out, building relationships. So that's exciting. And I think about what excites me and gets me energized. The same thing with Kaz. It's anything doing with ministry, with connecting with people and loving people. And so there's been times, especially when I couldn't find a job. It's crazy. Or I'm wondering, God, is this what you want? God, did we do the right thing? This leap, should we have done this? You start thinking these negative thoughts, but I go back to people praying and fasting and affirming our calling, and then this big assessment organization affirming our calling, and then Rise getting on board, and then I start seeing this snowball start to move and start to get momentum, and I'm feeling much better about where we are. So that is the update. I could say much more about what's going on. If you have any questions at all, if you want to give to the church, you could do that through our website. But if you don't want to pay the fees or have any of the fees go to the PayPal, just let me know, and I'll give you the church bank account number, and you can give directly to the church bank account. And we're fully established church in California, so it's a tax write-off. All that to say is share this, subscribe to the channel. We are just going to, like I mentioned before in our first video, just chronicle what we are doing with planning the church, and what the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. And so if you have any questions, you can put it in the comments below, but continue, because I'm hoping to have another vlog right after this one with better news about what's happening with Rise and how they're going to fund us. Here's the last one. The last one is, I don't know if I said this yet, but there is a good possibility we might be able to be funded this year. So we don't have to wait till next calendar year, but this fiscal year, this calendar year, 2025, there's a good chance they'll be able to support us. So that is an answer to prayer, a breath of fresh air, because I see my calling right here. I just could grab onto it, and same with Kaz, and we could go full force, just living for the kingdom of God. And that doesn't mean I won't be in the secular world working and doing bivocational stuff or things like that, because I will be very intentional about reaching people for Jesus, and so will Kaz. But right now we are called to plant this church and start this church, and so continue with us on this journey. God bless you.